Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 30 minutes. A big diplomatic victory for India on war against terror as US lists the Resistance Front a global terrorist outfit. India's first indigenously designed and built diving support vessel, INS Nistar, joins Indian Navy at Visakhapatnam. Israel allows limited access to Syrian troops into Sweden to ensure peace amid reports of ethnic clashes. And Germany hosts European Union interior ministers to discuss stricter migration measures. Summit aims to push for more stringent rules. The United States Department of State has designated the Resistance Front, or the TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also termed it as an offshoot of banned terror organization Lashkar-e-Toiba. India has welcomed the move, calling it a timely and important step. Here's more.
India has welcomed the decision of the United States Department of State to designate the Resistance Front, or the TRF, as a foreign terrorist organization and as a specially designated global terrorist. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar hailed the move in a post on social media platform X. In a statement, Ministry of External Affairs also said the designation of TRF is a timely and important step reflecting the deep cooperation between India and the United States on counter-terrorism. The MEA further said that India will continue to work closely with its international partners to ensure that terrorist organizations and their proxies are held accountable. The US government designated the Resistance Front, an offshoot of the Pakistani extremist group Lashkar-e-Taiba, as a foreign terrorist organization over their dastardly terror attack on April 22nd in Pahalgam in Kashmir that killed 26 innocent people. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement that decision enforces President Donald Trump's call for justice for the Pahalgam attack. Rubio called TRF, which emerged in 2019, a front and proxy for Lashkar-e-Taiba. The TRF has been involved in numerous terror-related activities, including the heinous attack on civilians in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, for which it twice claimed responsibility. India has consistently emphasized the need for global cooperation in the fight against terrorism and dismantling of terror infrastructure. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, after the grand success of the maiden edition of World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit, or WAVES, in Mumbai this year, India today unveiled the outcome report of the summit. Union Minister of Information and Broadcasting, Ashwini Vaishnaw, released the report saying the summit witnessed an overwhelming response from the exhibitors, industry leaders, startups, policymakers, academia and the general public. The summit emerged as a key convergence point for the media and entertainment ecosystem, drawing participation from every segment of the industry. The minister also inaugurated new campus of Indian Institute of Creative Technology. IICT is envisioned as a world-class talent hub for India's creative economy. The institute is launching 18 specialized courses spanning from gaming, post-production, animation, comics to XR, all designed in close collaboration with industry leaders. The minister also inaugurated Bharat Pavilion.
एक संकल्प है कि IIT और IIM के सिस्टम की तर्ज पर क्रिएटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज का एक नया इंस्टीट्यूशंस की सीरीज बने, IICT, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ क्रिएटिव टेक्नोलॉजीज। टेक्नोलॉजी आज की क्रिएटिव वर्ल्ड में जिस तरह से एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट बन चुकी है, उसमें बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हमारे क्रिएटिव इकोनॉमी में काम करने वाले जितने भी लोग हैं और जो इससे जुड़ना चाहते हैं, उन सबको हम नए स्किल्स दें, टेक्नोलॉजीज में ट्रेनिंग दें, नए टूल्स दें और दुनिया में जो बेस्ट हो रहा है उसको हम अपने यहाँ पर भारत में लेके आए और यहाँ से नए इंक्यूबेशन, नए आइडियाज, नई टेक्नोलॉजीज भी भारत से बने। उसी भावना के साथ, उसी उद्देश्य के साथ IICT की कल्पना की गई।
The minister also inaugurated Bharat Pavilion at Gulshan Mahal in the NFTC campus. The Air Force School in Delhi celebrated 70th Raising Day on Friday. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar attended the event and shared key advice on the enduring value of school's teaching. While addressing the gathering at his alma mater, he highlighted the importance of teamwork, discipline, and preparation instilled during one's time in school, which he credited for his success in diplomacy.
We have Operation Ganga, where we went into Ukraine. Perhaps that's the most famous one, but whether it was Afghanistan, whether it was Nepal, whether it was what we did in Yemen. I mentioned this to you because there was a second, I would say, set of qualities one learnt in school, which is teamwork. The ability to get along with other people, the ability to spot, in your own peer group and with others, you spot people's strengths and then try to meld it into something which is to a collective benefit.
In a landmark achievement under India's push for Atmanirbhar Bharat, or self-reliant India, the Indian Navy today commissioned its first indigenously designed and built diving support vessel INS Nistar at Visakhapatnam. Equipped with cutting-edge deep-sea diving systems, Nistar strengthens India's operational capability and stands ready to rescue personnel from distressed submarines. INS Nistar's primary role includes conducting deep-sea diving operations and rescuing personnel from distressed submarines. To support these specialized missions, INS Nistar features advanced saturation diving systems and a dedicated diving complex spanning multiple decks. Moving on, update on Syria's situation now. Israel said it will allow limited access by Syrian forces into the Suwaida area of southern Syria for the next 2 days because of instability in the area. Meanwhile, Syria's Interior Ministry spokesperson said on Friday that government forces were not preparing to deploy to Suwaida province. Nuruddin al-Baba denied a Reuters report citing an Interior Ministry media officer as saying that security forces were preparing to redeploy to Druze majority Suwaida city to quell fighting involving Bedouin tribes and the Druze, part of a religious minority in Syria. A fragile truce was holding in Syria's south on Friday after a ceasefire announced on Wednesday briefly ended days of fighting that began when Bedouin and Druze fighters clashed in Suwaida province in southern Syria, prompting the Syrian government to send in troops. Hundreds of Druze were seen crossing the border in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, despite efforts by the Israeli military to stop the stream of men heading by foot and by cars into Syria. Members of the Druze community appealed for the protection of their families in the neighboring country, while others breached the border and crossed into Syria on Wednesday. Members of the community who gathered earlier in the Druze town of Majdal Shams pleaded for the safety of their community in Syria. While most Druze in Israel identify as Israeli citizens, more than 20,000 living in the occupied Golan still identify as Syrians and have close ties to the family on the other side of the border. The United States has condemned violence in Syria, calling on all the parties to step back and engage in meaningful dialogue that leads to a lasting ceasefire. Talking to the media, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said that U.S. did not support recent Israeli strikes on Syria.
The United States unequivocally condemns the violence. All parties must step back and engage in meaningful dialogue that leads to a lasting ceasefire. The United States did not support recent Israeli strikes, we are engaging diplomatically with Israel and Syria at the highest levels, both to address the present crisis and reach a lasting agreement between the two sovereign states. President Trump has outlined his clear vision of a prosperous Middle East and stable Syria at peace with itself and its neighbors. Peace among neighbors, including Israel and Syria, is a critical component of this vision.
Now, top European diplomats have told their Iranian counterparts on Thursday they were determined to reactivate UN sanctions if Tehran does not make progress on a nuclear deal. The diplomats from Britain, France, Germany and the European Union told Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi of their determination to use the snapback mechanism. They warned to reimpose all international sanctions against Iran in the absence of concrete progress towards a deal on Tehran's nuclear program by the end of the summer. European diplomats are seeking progress by the end of August as the agreement is due to expire in the month of October. Earlier on Monday, an advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said there would be no new nuclear talks with the United States if they were conditioned on Tehran abandoning its uranium enrichment activities. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told his European counterparts on Friday they have no grounds for reactivating UN sanctions after they threatened to do so in coming months unless there is progress in nuclear talks. Now, taking to social media platform X, Iranian Foreign Minister said that if EU, E3 want to have a role, they should act responsibly and put aside the worn-out policies of threat and pressure, including the snapback, for which they lack absolutely no moral and legal ground. Iran's Foreign Minister further stated that it was the US that withdrew from a 2-year negotiated deal coordinated by European Union in 2015, not Iran. Any new round of talks is only possible when the other side is ready for a fair, balanced and mutually beneficial nuclear deal, unquote. Kremlin reacts on a new package of European Union sanctions imposed on Moscow over its conflict in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia has built up a certain immunity to Western sanctions and adapted to them. The European Union agreed an 18th package of sanctions against Russia on Friday, including measures aimed at dealing further blows to the Russian oil and energy industry. Peskov called the sanctions illegal, saying every new restriction created negative consequences for those countries that backed them.
We have reportedly said that we consider such unilateral restrictions illegal. We oppose them. But at the same time, of course, we have already acquired a certain immunity from the sanctions. We have adapted to life under sanctions. Of course, we need to analyze the new package in order to minimize its consequences. But in addition, each new package adds a negative effect for the countries that join it. This is double-edged sword.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Friday said that Germany must not overburden its cities with irregular migration.
We stand by our goal that Germany must remain an attractive country for immigrants, especially for our labor market and for science and research. But we agree that we cannot continue to overburden our cities and communities and our society as a whole with irregular migration. That is why we've introduced changes to move toward a humanitarian and orderly migration policy by better managing migration.
Now, Merz's government looks to signal a hard line on immigration as the topic has risen up the political agenda in tandem with the rise of the far-right Alternative for Germany party. Meanwhile, German Interior Minister Alexander hosts several European Union colleagues for a discussion on tightening migration policy in the bloc. The meeting, which is taking place at the top of Germany's highest mountain, is being attended by the interior ministers of Austria, Czech Republic, Denmark, France and Poland, along with European Union Commissioner for Internal Affairs and Migration, Magnus Brunner. Time to take a quick and short break, but still to come on the other side. Protesters across the U.S. voiced their dissatisfaction with the Trump administration and its policies. And after the break, we'll get you the latest weather updates from across the world. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Now, in a major fiscal overhauling in the United States, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives has passed President Donald Trump's $9 billion funding cut package. The decision was taken early on Friday with a narrow 216 to 213 vote. The funding cut targets public media and foreign aid, though the Senate excluded about $400 million in funds for the global HIV/AIDS program from the cuts. Republicans defend the move, claiming that the foreign aid supported wasteful programs. The bill now heads to the White House for President Trump's signature. The U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday passed a bill to create a regulatory framework for U.S. dollar-pegged cryptocurrency tokens known as stablecoins, sending the bill to President Donald Trump. Two other bills passed by the House, known as the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act and the Clarity Act, will now go to the Senate, where their ultimate fates are still unknown. House lawmakers also passed a bill developing a regulatory framework for crypto. That will move on to the Senate for consideration. The stablecoin bill, dubbed the Genius Act, received bipartisan support, with many Democrats joining Republicans to back the proposed federal rules. The vote on the market structure bill, known as the Clarity Act, was also notably bipartisan. If signed into a law, the bill would require tokens to be backed by liquid assets such as US dollars and short-term treasury bills, and for issuers to publicly disclose the composition of their reserves on a monthly basis. Now, protesters across the United States have once again taken to the streets of New York to voice their dissatisfaction with the Trump administration and its policies. As the good trouble lives on, protests took over the 50 states. Protesters in New York were seen blocking the intersection near the Immigration and Customs Enforcement building. Major protests speaking out against Trump's healthcare cuts, immigration policies, and other decisions erupted in Georgia's Atlanta, Missouri's St. Louis, and California's Oakland, along with Maryland's Annapolis. U.S. President Donald Trump quickly responded to a report published by the Wall Street Journal in which his name appeared in a risque 2003 personal note to Jeffrey Epstein. Trump, on his social media platform Truth Social, said that the letter was fake and added that he would sue the newspaper and Rupert Murdoch, who controls its publisher, News Corp. The Journal reported that the letter was one of several included in a leather-bound album meant to celebrate Epstein's 50th birthday, about 3 years before sex abuse allegations emerged against the financier. White House press secretary said that U.S. President Donald Trump won't recommend a special prosecutor for the Jeffrey Epstein case, as claims spread that his administration is covering up lurid details of Epstein's crimes to protect rich and powerful figures.
The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. The president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats in the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about.
Although U.S. President Donald Trump had asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony in the Jeffrey Epstein case, subject to court's approval. Moving on. Well, it's been a week of extreme weather events across the globe, with devastating rains, floods and wildfires impacting millions. In Pakistan, the Punjab province witnessed at least 63 deaths and nearly 300 injuries in the past 24 hours due to heavy rains. The nationwide toll since late June has climbed 259, with forecasts warning of more rain in the coming days, particularly in the north. Meanwhile, South Korea remains on high alert as relentless rains enter third day, killing 4 people and displacing over 5,000. The city of Seosan recorded 400 millimeters of rainfall, with continued warnings of landslides and flooding through Saturday. In Russia's eastern Siberia, emergency crews are battling severe floods where river levels have surged. Over 200 personnel and 60 vehicles are deployed for relief operations. In southern Europe, wildfires are raging. In Spain, firefighters are managing a blaze near Madrid, which has spread over 3,000 hectares, driven by strong winds from the town of Madrid. And in France, wildfires spread across 250 hectares northwest of Marseille. Around 1,000 firefighters are on the ground and 150 residents have been evacuated. The officials say cooler weather is aiding the efforts. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world in brief. Thousands of doctors, health workers and supporters marched through the streets of Buenos Aires on Thursday to protest against Javier Milei-led government cutbacks to Argentina's public health sector. Over 220 healthcare staff have resigned recently due to poor conditions and inflation, putting pressure on public hospitals. In northwest Colombia, a rescue operation is underway after a serious accident trapped at least 18 miners inside a gold mine. The Ministry of Mines and Energy has said the miners are presumed alive, though the exact cause of the incident remains unclear. Researchers in Hong Kong unveiled an AI-based medical imaging technology that reduces radiation exposure by up to 99%. The technology replaces traditional CT scans with 97% accuracy and imaging under a minute, streamlining surgical public planning. Public hospitals of Hong Kong will soon begin the trials, potentially transforming diagnostic practices. Well, for over 2 millennia, a sacred duty has been passed down through generations, the care of the Jaishankar Mahabodhi in Sri Lanka. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the revered site and Anuradhapura, where the guardians of this holy tree are descendants of those who came from India with Sanghamitra Tredi. Here's more.
In April this year, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi stood before one of Buddhism's holiest symbols, the Jaishankar Mahabodhi in Sri Lanka's Anuradhapura. This tree, grown from a sapling of the original Bodhi tree in India's Bodh Gaya, has stood here for over 2,200 years as a living bridge between India and Sri Lanka. Day after day, year after year, it is carefully tended to by the local villagers, quiet, unseen and unwavering in their devotion. But what few know is that these villagers are not ordinary caretakers. They belong to a lineage entrusted with the Bodhi tree's protection since the time it first took root here. In the year 236 BC, Sanghamitra Mahateri, daughter of Emperor Ashoka, arrived in Sri Lanka with a sacred sapling. Alongside her came bhikkhunis, princes and skilled artisans tasked with safeguarding the tree and its rituals. Many of them settled near Tissaveva in villages like Vihara Bulankulama, Medavachiya and Kalanchiya. Recently, India's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, visited one such village, the Vihara Kalanchiya, where he met the Mahaduraya and heads of the 9 villages still responsible for preserving this legacy.
පොත්පත් වල සටහන් වෙලා තියෙන 2367ක් දැන් කප ගෙවි යනවා. තව 2499ක් ඉදිරියට පැවැත්වෙනවා. ඒ කාල සීමාව තුළ මාගේ පරම්පරාව දිවි හිමියෙන් අපි බෝධින්නාන්සේ ආරක්ෂා කරනවා කියලා සදී පැහැදී බැඳී සිටිනවා. උන්වහන්සේගේ වයසත් එක්ක ඉන්දියාවෙන් ඉඳන් ගෙනපු දවසේ ඉඳන් තැන්පත් කරපු දවසේ ඉඳන් 2367යි. තව 2499ක් ඉදිරියට තියෙනවා කප. මේ පරම්පරාව මේ විදිහට ආරස්සල මේ පරම්පරාව රැකගෙන ඉදිරියටත් අපි බෝධින්නාන්සේ තනි කරන්න බෝධින්නාන්සේ රැක බලා ගන්නවා කියලා දිවි හිමියෙන් ප්‍රතිඥා දෙමින්.
Their story, passed down not through books but through devotion, echoes the royal decree of King Devanampiya Tissa, who on the advice of Arahat Mahinda entrusted these very families with the sacred task of protecting the Bodhi tree. What began as a royal mission has quietly evolved into a generational vow lived out daily at the Jaishankar Mahabodhi temple. From the footsteps of Sanghamitra Theri to the prayers of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the story of the Bodhi tree is not only written in leaves and soil, but in the living hands of those who care for it still. This is a legacy of devotion rooted in heritage and reaching across borders. For DD India, Ahmed Moin Farooqi from Anuradhapura.
That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.